Hi everybody, my laptop died and now I'm in a new setting. Okay, let's finish up the last couple questions together and then I will be out of your hair. But then I'm going to show you really quickly how you can enter all of this in online. So, let's go back. We were on question 2. We were on this two-part question. So it wants us to decide based on their use of dialect, what can we infer about Mose and Charlie Taylor? So there's two words in there that we need to know. We need to know what dialect means, and we need to know what infer means. And we talk all the time in class, what is a sensible guess we can make? That's what an inference is. It's a sensible guess. So that word, it's asking us what kind of guess we can make. And remember, if you remember towards the very end, right before we let out of school, I kept telling you, it's a sensible guess that you can back up with text evidence. So I can make any sort of guess, but what makes it sensible is that you can back it up with your text. So the second word is dialect. So we need to know that dialect means the way that they speak. So we're only looking for an example of something in their word choice that is maybe a little bit different than the way that we would speak in proper English or the way that a character would typically speak. So let's first, I think the first thing we can do is look for an example of dialect in the passage, because chances are there's only going to be probably one or two examples, and then we can really narrow down what the question is trying to ask us. So I'm looking for any of words that either the characters use that is maybe a little bit different than normal. We've practiced this in class. So the middle-aged reporter next to him asked, I'm reading right here, the middle-aged reporter next to him asked, "Aren't you a little young for coffee?" So I think that was all pretty normal. Mose shrugged as he cut a chunk of meat and said, "Dunno, but I've been drinking as long as I've been a newsie." So if I was going to say that in a typical English way, I would say, I don't know, but I've been drinking it as long as I have been a newsie. And so you see here he uses dunno and drinking. That doesn't necessarily, I don't really love this question because I don't think when people speak or say drinking, it necessarily means they're less educated, but I think that's what this question is trying to get you to answer. I think sometimes when they're really talking about dialect, what they really want you to see is there a place where a character says something in an unusual or different way that might tell you something about them. So he says, "Dunno, but I've been drinking it as long as I've been a newsie. I can't go to sleep till my papers are sold. Say, thanks for lunch, Mr. Taylor." Charlie Taylor regarded the boy, all of 12 years old, and wrote in his notebook, "The strike has been on for a week now," he said. "Before the strike, what was a normal day for you?" So in that whole chunk, if I know what the word dialect means, I know that there's only one sentence in there that even contains anything sort of similar to dialect. And that is this sentence right here that I've already underlined and circled these two examples. As long as I've been a newsie is also an example. So we found the dialect, and in this question said which sentence best supports the answered part A. So we found the dialect. So now what does that dialect tell us? Is dunno, I've been drinking as long as I've been a newsie. Does that tell me that both characters are poor and unemployed? So I do not think that that tells me that both characters are poor and unemployed. So I'm going to give this a big X. I know that's not my right answer. B, Mose knows more about the news than Charlie Taylor does. While this could be true, I don't think that this sentence is telling us anything about how he knows more about the news. And it's also, the dialect isn't really giving us that information. Using the word dunno doesn't really tell me anything about what Mose knows about the news or not. So I'm going to say no, that's not it. C, both characters come from wealthy families. I don't understand how this dialect would tell us that Mose comes from a wealthy family. It doesn't really give me any sort of hint as to that would be the right answer. So I'm going to guess that this is a no as well. And D is Mose is less educated than Charlie Taylor. So the fact that he isn't using I don't know and but I've been drinking is a way to be able to tell that his dialect might suggest that he's younger. So maybe he's been to less school and hasn't learned as much of the proper way to form those words yet. So that's what I'm going to guess is D is that correct answer right there. Let's move on to number 3. So what is the main thing Charlie Taylor is doing in this story? So I have to think about my characters. We have Mose, who is the young newsie, and I annotated that up in the side, so this is helpful for me now when I'm thinking about my two different characters. Mose is the newsie, and Charlie Taylor is the other character that is interviewing him, and I already know this. So, Charlie Taylor is giving a speech about a strike. I know that Charlie Taylor is spending this time talking to Mose about his participation in the strike and that he is, I think, interviewing him of some sort. So I'm going to say that this is not the answer. He's studying American slang. Even if you don't know what the word slang means, you know that that's not what he's doing. So let's give that a big X. C, he's interviewing a boy for a newspaper story. Ding, 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 ding. Or D, he's buying lunch for a hungry person. This one seems pretty simple. If you are able to read the passage, you kind of have an idea that they're going back and forth. This might have been a good guess. If you did this on your own without watching the video first, this might have been a good guess, but the key here is that they're going back and forth and that Charlie is actually an interviewer for The Sun. And he says that right at the very end when he says, "The Sun has been selling papers like never before." And you could also get this hint when he says, "Am I going to be in tomorrow's paper?" Because he's interviewing him for the paper. Okay, number 4. How are Charlie Taylor and Mose Armstrong alike? So we're not going to think about what's different about them. We're going to try to think about what things are similar. So they both have hard lives. This could be true. We don't know if Mose had a hard life. We don't know if Charlie's had a hard life. But I don't think the passage really talks about either of their lives too much. It talks about Mose and like his experience as a newsie and striking, but it doesn't really tell us that about Charlie. So I'm going to guess that this probably is not my answer. C, both avoid paying for streetcar rides. This I know is not true because right here, where is it? Right here. Charlie says, "You mean you ride the streetcar without paying?" Charlie's surprised by that. So I'm obviously gonna know that Charlie does not do that. So by asking Mose, like he's like, "What? You ride the streetcar without paying?" I think that can allow us to guess that he probably doesn't do that. So I'm gonna say that that is not the right answer either. They both read the same newspaper. So this could be a good guess because we know that both of them are involved in newspapers, but we don't really hear that either of them read the newspaper. I'm going to say maybe, and both work in the newspaper industry. Now, I know that this is true because I know that Mose sells papers and I know that Charlie's an interviewer. So I'm going to say that this is my correct answer because not that this very well could be true. They very well both could read The Sun. They very well both could read the newspaper that Mose works for. But the best answer is that both of them work in the newspaper industry. We know that for sure based on the text. Okay, we are going to do number 5, and then I'm going to allow you to answer 6, 7, 8, and 9 on your own. Okay, so number 5. In paragraph 8, what does the word nonchalantly mean? Now, we talk a lot about in class how to determine the meaning of an unfamiliar word. One thing we can do is read around the word and try to see what the context of the word means and try to come up with what we think the word might mean, even though we don't know. So let's go to paragraph 8. Okay, right here. It says, "Sure, and sometimes I even sell a few papers on the way too," Mose said nonchalantly. So, right here, this is the very beginning of the paragraph. So I'm actually going to go back a little bit more to try to get more of the understanding of what they're talking about in this moment. So Mose swallowed a mouthful and explained, "After I buy my sheets, I usually flip a car down to Wall Street." "You mean you ride the streetcar without paying?" Charlie asked. "Sure, and sometimes I even sell a few papers on the way too." So, as we can see here, Mose is kind of like doing this, like he doesn't even care. He rides the streetcar without paying, and then even on the way, he sells some stuff. I don't know what nonchalantly means, but I know what I can do. I know I can take my answer choices and try to replace them in for that word and see which fits the best. So I have "in a serious way" is my first choice. So Sure, and sometimes I even sell a few papers on the way too, Mose said in a serious way. I don't think Mose right here is being very serious. He's talking about um, how he often goes and like hitches a ride on the streetcar and like sneaks a ride and is trying to be all cool. And like even when he's sneaking a ride, he sells papers. So I don't think he's really being too serious in this moment. My other answer choices are he with strong feelings. I feel like when he says sure, and I even sell a few papers on the way too, he's not really saying that very strongly. He's kind of like just throwing that out there. C, in a matter of fact way, that would mean he was saying something like, this is absolutely true, some like hard facts. This is a matter of fact. This is absolutely true. And again, he's kind of saying this la-di-da type of way. So I don't think this is the correct answer as well. But D, without thinking, I think that this is the correct answer. So let's just try to replace it into that sentence and see how it sounds. It says, sure. And sometimes I even sell a few papers on the way too. Mose said without thinking. Nobody wants the morning edition after 11, so I can't waste a minute. I think that that really fits with Moses' character and the way that he was speaking in this moment. Another thing that hints me at that is that he's eating, right, as he says that. I don't think he's being very serious if he's talking with his mouth full. Right here it says Moses swallowed a mouthful and explained. So he's not really being very serious in this moment because, I mean, if you took a really big bite of your sandwich and then continued to talk, I don't think you'd be trying to say something that was really, really important to you. And then afterwards, we can just really see by replacing that word that without thinking fits there. So I'm going to say that D is the correct answer. So now it is your task to do 6, 7, 8, and 9. It shouldn't take you too long. If you are wondering what those answers are, I will post them at the end of the week. I will post all the answer keys so that you guys can see exactly what you got, what you missed, what you still need help on. If you would like your answers sooner than that, let me know. But that is what I have for you today. I hope that you got some good ELA time out of this and work through that packet. Thank you so much for taking the time today to just sit here and watch this and really participate with your learning. I appreciate every single one of you, and let me know how I can make myself more available to you or make these videos easier to follow or more interesting. I am open to obviously any suggestions that you have or questions that you have. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you bright and early tomorrow for your next video. Have a good night, everybody.